I am sitting down with Sheena Smith, Board of Directors for Recovery on Water, and Tara Hoffman, the Program Manager for ROW. And we are going to be discussing all things related to rowing and breast cancer treatment and how this organization was started. So first, a very big warm welcome to both of you for joining me. I'm really looking forward to sitting down and speaking with both of you, and thank you for making the time to do so.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to be here.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So why don't we just kick things off and start with both of you. Why don't you talk about your backgrounds and the history of ROW? And I think that'll kind of set us up nicely for some of the finer points later on in our discussion.
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and kick that off. So Sheena Smith, I currently am the chair of the board of directors for Recovery on Water. I've been on the board for the past 3 years, but I've been involved with ROW since 2009. So I actually started filling in seats on boats as a volunteer when I first moved to Chicago that summer, and gradually grew up to coaching our novice squad and ended up starting our associate board, and then moved on to our regular board in the past 3 years. So it's been a long journey with the organization. We serve women who are previvors, survivors, metastatic patients, and all patients who've been affected by breast cancer. We get them on the ergs and out on the water, and have been doing so since 2007.
Fantastic. Tara, let's hear from you as well.
All right. Well, I came to ROW in 2016, and it was a breast cancer diagnosis that brought me here specifically. I had been a rower in college on a club team at Drake University, but I'd been away from the sport for many years. When I was going through treatment, one of my doctors recommended the team, and I jumped at it because I was so ready to do something that was an active part of my recovery and not just me being a passive patient. I rowed on the team for 5 seasons, and then had the opportunity to get my coaching certifications. So I began coaching teammates on the ergs, and then I have started coaching on the water as well. Stepped onto the ROW staff itself as programs manager earlier this year. So now I work with our full stable of coaches, and really none of the programming that we deliver would be possible without our coaches and coxswains. And I do a little bit of everything. The typical practice will see me showing up, making lineups, letting the head coach get folks out, and then where does Tara need to be? Is it in the coach's launch? Is it, rowing port somewhere in the boat, or perhaps sitting in the coxswain's seat?
Wonderful. So wearing any and all hats necessary. Love it.
Absolutely.
So for those that may be tuning in and listening to our interview later on, could you provide some context? You mentioned, Sheena, previvor, survivor, metastatic. Could you just help to define some of those terms? Perhaps a rowing coach who isn't familiar with breast cancer may listen to this later on. What do those terms mean, and what's the significance in and around related to the ability to row?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll invite Tara to bring some color to the conversation as well. So when you look at a breast cancer diagnosis, there are so many grades and stages and types of breast cancer out there. I admit I was a bit ignorant in coming to ROW in terms of thinking like, okay, well, everyone who gets breast cancer is going to have a mastectomy, and then they're going to go through chemotherapy, and then they're going to do radiation, and then they're going to do reconstruction, and then they're going to go on and live their life. But that's very much not true. Previvor is a term for people who have been diagnosed with a gene, BRCA gene typically, where they do not have a breast cancer diagnosis, but they are likely to get one in their lives. And so oftentimes we work with women who have gotten preemptive mastectomies or preemptive hysterectomies, depending on what's been going on there. So we call that a previvor. In terms of a survivor, I think it's somewhat contentious language. I'm using it because it's generally accepted as any patient who has been through a breast cancer diagnosis. So that could be someone stage 0, where they have a lumpectomy and they're watched. It could be someone with stage 4, which means that they will never not have breast cancer. It's what we call metastatic, where the cancer has spread to another part of their body and they will be in treatment for the rest of their lives for sure. We serve all of these women on our team. We serve all ages. I am sad to see that a lot of our newer members are younger and younger. We have women in their 20s and women in their 70s on our team. So it's quite a diverse group. And yeah, Tara, anything else to add?
Yes, I would say that where women are in their breast cancer journey is also varies greatly on the team. Some women come during treatment, like I did myself. In fact, I just heard from a woman that had received her diagnosis and had not yet entered treatment, but the first thing she did was she contacted Roe because she knew that was something that she wanted to do alongside anything else that she'd be going through. Some women are many, many years out of treatment, but the exercise and the camaraderie that they get from the team is still a tremendously valuable thing going forward in helping to stave off recurrence and to rebuild identity after something as earth-shaking as a cancer diagnosis and treatment. And then, like Sheena mentioned, we do have women that are in treatment currently because they are metastatic and they know they'll always be in treatment. And rowing as part of a team is part of what keeps them engaged with their team and active and engaged in life.
And Tara, you had mentioned initially about the difference between being an active and a passive participant. Could you kind of shed some additional light on that?
Well, being a patient is very much about being poked and prodded and told what to do. So having something that I could do to contribute to how I felt throughout treatment and what the prognosis was going to be when I was on the other side was huge. I mean, it really just shifted my entire mindset, where it was a lot easier to tolerate side effects, pain, fatigue, things that I was going through that were a direct result of treatment. And it made me feel as if, I had a say in this as well, that there were things I could do that were going to make me just feel more powerful and in control, regain some of that control, shift my focus away from things that were unpleasant that I didn't have a lot of control over, and really put myself in a place where I felt a little bit of that shaking off of fear of not knowing what was going to happen and not feeling like I had any control over what was going on with me.
And it sounds like the way that the organization is set up, it really helps to empower all of the members to be able to take those steps for themselves and to regain some of that control.
It's true. Yes, absolutely. Although I got to say, rowing, there's some secrets in it as well, where it's definitely going to shift your focus away from the negative things that are dominating your life because you're enduring breast cancer treatment, because it's a really, really difficult thing to do. And that's a benefit, right? When our coaching staff is interested in breaking women out of a place that's a little dark and frightening and bringing them to a place that's a little more hopeful and empowering, that focus is enforced. There's a really novel element to rowing, and almost everybody is going to be learning it for the first time. And it really levels the playing field as well. I mean, there are different types of women that are attracted to Recovery on Water as a support group rather than a more traditional support group. And some of those women, come from a fitness background. And so they're excited, they jump at the chance. They're like, this is for me because it's something that is familiar to me from my pre-cancer life. Getting exercise, being part of a team, competitive sports. And then there are other women that are being told by their doctors that this would be a really good idea for them to incorporate some exercise into their life, and they have no idea and maybe little desire how to go about it. And so having a team aspect where there's that accountability and support can be a big draw for someone who might not normally be attracted to exercise, say going to the gym and just getting on the treadmill and grinding out 30 minutes. But because we've got women coming from both backgrounds, it's great that it's new for all of them, because now they both feel that they can contribute. Everybody's learning. Everybody needs to pay attention. You don't automatically have those women that feel like, they're at the head of the class. They've got to learn how to do something new and technically demanding as well.
Yeah, it's nice to be a beginner again in some aspects, and refreshing and fun. And just some of the information that both of you shared with me before we hopped on our interview is just in regards to the growth and how many new people have joined. So there's currently, and correct me if any of this is wrong, 70 plus members currently. And then in the last year, 2020 to 2021, you've had 28 novices join the team. I mean, that's just absolutely fantastic. So, we're looking at just over 3/8 worth of brand new
amazing.
members. Yeah, very cool, very cool. So, coming back a little bit to the organization, why rowing and why breast cancer?
Sorry, I'm going to let you step in on that one. You have all the stats.
Oh, all right. Well, I would say our focus is on breast cancer because, and people ask us this, right? Because rowing is neat and people want to do it. Why is the team made up of and focus on breast cancer patients and survivors? And it's primarily because of the really, really strong correlation between exercise and the reduction of either an initial diagnosis or the recurrence of breast cancer. Exercise is going to be beneficial for anybody, but the correlation between someone experiencing breast cancer and exercise is so incredibly high. It's higher than even other types of cancer. It's one of the highest. And additionally, all of the things that someone's going to be experiencing and what one experiences from breast cancer is very seldom the effects of the cancer itself. It's quite often the effects of the treatment. And there's myriad side effects that when women might be dealing with that are undergoing treatment or that are beyond treatment. But exercise is going to be the perfect prescription for so many of those. And so that's why we make that connection of breast cancer and rowing. And then rowing specifically, it's a great sport. It's very appropriate to the limitations that might come from effects of treatment, or the fact that you might be a little older. Many women develop, most of the women are on our team are getting their initial diagnosis in their 40s or 50s or even later. And then there's also this sexiness factor to rowing that I think is not to be overlooked. If exercise is the thing that really is going to drive your ongoing health, it might as well be compelling type of exercise, right? Something that's a little more fun, a little unusual, something that people really sit up and take notice when you tell them that you're a rower.
Yeah, one of the things I had shared with both of you as we were setting up the interview that I thought was just incredible in the journal that I had reviewed for this month was that to date, this study had shown that rowing has had the most significant impact on physical activity, cardiovascular health, and body composition of any intervention using a different type of physical activity, whether that's running, swimming, cycling, that type of thing. So bang for your buck, rowing has had the best results. So it's directly aligned with everything you just shared. And then we have the added additional benefits of a community as well.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So what are some of the, you mentioned limitations, but what are some of the specific challenges around breast cancer? From the journal, in my review, it talked about lymphedema, you've mentioned fatigue. There can be, mental health, depression, challenges around quality of life, but you've also touched on some others as well that I was not familiar with.
I think over the years as a coach coaching this team, you see things like muscle atrophy, you see range of motion issues. Some of the surgeries that these women go through can be incredibly invasive, and some of the recovery or reconstruction surgeries as well. There's one type of reconstruction surgery where they actually cut out some of your latissimus muscle and move it to the front to support your new implants, which,
Wow.
as you can imagine, would have a big effect on your rowing stroke. Your lats are so important as a part of a rowing stroke, but also things like cording, neuropathy. But I think one of the things that doesn't get mentioned as often is, sure, there are all these physiological effects of cancer on the body, but I think one of the scariest things is a fear of recurrence. You have to live in a mental space where you go forward for the rest of your life saying, I had cancer, and what if it comes back? So I think rowing is a means to pull away from it in the quite literal sense. You get to get in a boat, you get to be with other people who have that fear and share that fear with you and live through it together.
I have to imagine that is just incredibly powerful to, be in front of or behind and around other women who have gone through that similar experience. It's got to be something, a strength that you can draw upon from one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I remember our new novices on their first day in the boathouse. There's a total look of shock that comes into their eyes when they see the masters lift that boat over their head. And it's something that I know what's going through their mind. Like, I could never do that. And of course, it's the next thing we teach them.
Right. So let's talk about some of the, those next steps of getting started with rowing. So you mentioned exercises, prescription, the community and the support. So if I'm interested in joining row, how do I go about that? And how do I know, what's a good entry point for me? What are some types of questions I should be asking if I am somebody that's undergoing treatment? And then on the flip side, if I am a rowing coach that, say, is somewhere else in the country or in the world that does not have direct access in person to row, what are some things that I should be aware of from a coaching standpoint?
I think first caveat here is Tara and I are not medical professionals. So the first thing we say is talk to your doctor. There is typically a clearance point that most patients get to where their doctor says, okay, go out and exercise. I want to also be very clear that we're not typically throwing you in an 8 to do pieces first day of practice. If you have had muscle atrophy, you obviously need to build back, and oftentimes you also need to build back some cardio, right? So I think for us, it's important to think of a slow ramp up as you get someone used to the erg, and then as you put them in a boat for the first time. Gosh, Tara, we row by 4 long weeks sometimes. So helping them feel stable and comfortable and confident in their body, which may have changed a lot over their period of treatment. So that's very important. And then Tara, I'll let you step in there. But from a coaching perspective, I think it's important to remember that this is just as much, if not more, mental than physical. I think a lot of times our team members can be very forthcoming about their physical limitations, and they're so excited to be there and be in the boat that sometimes they can get overwhelmed with the joy of rowing for the first time, or being with a group that very much understands them, but also being very fearful. I mean, we row out on a commercial waterway with barges going by, and it's scary. The Chicago River can be a very scary, overwhelming place, as can doing something brand new. So when you're coaching, just think about, I feel like a lot of coaches rowed in high school or rowed in college, right? And you're young and you're fearless, and think about how scary it could be for a first time rower, and put yourself back in that place, and try to come from a place of empathy and clear communication too, because oftentimes people don't want to admit weakness or they're not feeling good on a given day. So just keep your emotions strong.
That's great
To
advice.
dovetail with what Gina has said, I think our coaches need to keep in mind that they're going to have different women with different fears and different frustrations on the team. And one of the biggest things we can provide through rowing is that sense of regaining control. A lot of rowing is also understanding how much you can control and relinquishing quite a bit of control as well. So that right part of the conundrum that I think coaches do well to keep in their head, that they're going to have a boat full of women that may be in different parts of that in the very same practice, but that those women can contribute to a good practice for one another. I think our coaches need to know that they might be providing a technical or a fitness benchmark for any given athlete on that day, but they also might be providing emotional growth or a teamwork breakthrough for certain athletes. And I think when athletes discover that they have a myriad of different things that might be their takeaway of the day, they feel a little more comfortable and a little and feel more proud about their ability to improve in the sport, because there are a lot of different areas in which they can make that improvement. For the woman that's just coming to the team, I'm going to be her first stop. I teach Learn to Row, the ergs, with all of our new members. And I got to say, that's probably the biggest perk of the job. I love doing those one-on-one sessions where someone's getting on that machine for the first time and learning all of these new phrases and new things. And then I frankly love taking novices on in the winter season, because that means they're going to get a lot of concentrated time on the ergs where they can develop their stroke and their technique and work on building their cardio base on their own, side by side with their teammates. And another great aspect to our winter training is our novices and masters train together. So it's one team, one room together. And then once spring comes around, they get the reward, right? They get the treat of the water.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
For our newest rowers, there are lots of ways we get them comfortable with the water. Like Sheena mentioned, rowing by fours, it takes a while before you're just going to be out there rowing by all eights. Or we get them on our training barge. We have a number of ways that we can make it comfortable for someone that's just learning, even folks that are not tremendously comfortable with their swimming ability. We bring women along at their own speed, and we bring them along as a team. They've always got the support of their teammates.
That's wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. So Tara, it sounds like you start out on land on the ergometer and then progress to a barge, and then eventually an 8 or a 4 or maybe a quad or something like that, a bigger, more stable boat. Is that a logical progression?
It is.
Okay. Very good. So you had mentioned getting clearance by your medical provider is absolutely critical before kind of beginning learning to participate at row. And that can vary for each individual and their respective treatment. So kind of building upon that, what are some of the differences, and I can speak to this as well, but I would love to hear from both of you. What can rowing provide that makes it different than other physical activities such as running or cycling, anything like that?
I think number one is the low impact, right? I think everyone says that about rowing, and it speaks to the fact that rowing gyms are popping up all over the place, and things like H2Row and the home movement as well. And that speaks well to people who may have severe joint pain from post-chemo effects. Some of the other things that we can talk to is there's a reason I think most masters clubs have a few octogenarians running about, right? Rowing ages well. You can be 80 years old and go out and row whatever split you feel like, but you're out there and you're getting it done. And that's pretty powerful for our team as well, because some of them are crew moms in high school. They watch their kids row, and the fact that they can go do it is pretty special. That's really cool.
That's very cool.
It is. It's as long as there are seats in the boats and coaches to run practice, it's very scalable. I mean, we have the equipment to run, I mean, multiple practices a day if we have the demand for it. So it's something that we can do a lot of across a large swath of population, which is great. And then also, I think we've already kind of talked about the team aspect. It's important to have a team when you're going through a cancer treatment, but you don't necessarily want to talk about cancer all the time. I've heard one woman tell me before, all of the other support groups I went to were like sit around and cry circles. And she just said, I don't want that. I want to do something, but with people who understand me. So.
Absolutely. I did want to ask to kind of just build upon the discussion that we've had. So is there other elements that a rowing coach should know about coaching women that are in treatment or recovering from breast cancer that we should be aware of, either from a training standpoint or a safety standpoint, to just be sort of cognizant of in the back of our mind?
I would say open communication is really where you need to start, because any given woman is going to be able to provide the best information about where they're coming from. But that athlete also is probably new to the sport and needs the coach to provide some modifications or ideas of where she can participate in a slightly different way if something is, if she's restricted from a certain movement or certain activity. So I would say port or starboard is a question we start with, and those are going to be new terms to a lot of women that have just joined the team. Typically, if someone is still recovering from an asymmetrical treatment where they've received surgery or radiation on one side, they'll have some restricted, some reduced range of motion on that side. So depending how bad it is, typically that won't be their power side. So if you've had your surgery on the right, we'll have you row port. If you've had on the left, we'll have you row starboard. But again, that's not going to be the same for all women. And we really value those women that can row both sides. So that's a conversation that, that happens over time. If it's required, you might be restricted to one side, but if it's not, eventually you'll be trying something else out on the other side of the boat.
Yeah, that's very helpful to know. For me, that's absolutely brand new information. I mean, it makes, sense, but again, it's not something that you would necessarily sort of connect the dots and think of, right away, unless we're having this conversation. One question that I did want to ask both of you, so we've all been dealing with it over the last 18 to 24 months is the pandemic. What are some of the unique challenges that the organization has had to face, as well as the membership, and how have you had to adapt to continue to provide, a program during this time?
I think one of the biggest things to talk about is we are an immunocompromised team. Oftentimes when you're going through treatment, your immune system is down because that's the nature of treatment. So we've had to be incredibly careful about in-person gatherings, whether we're inside or outside. And we've been following CDC and local city guidelines to a T. We're very lucky to have a physician on our board who has been a lifesaver in terms of providing guidance around what's safe for our team specifically. Then also there's the entire winter practice where you're not connecting with your team. There's something to be said for the energy that's in a room when you all row a 2K together, and rowing a 2K in your basement with a Zoom screen open in front of you, but all clubs have experienced that, I think. But getting to go back out on the water this spring, it was like opening a gate and everyone's like, oh, I don't want to go out. It was just so fun to get everyone out. But any other specific challenges, Tara, that you remember?
Credit our team with the connection that they retained over the course of the pandemic. It was, for many women, one of their primary social outlets, if not the primary social outlet. In fact, a few team members were a little embarrassed. They were like, this is basically all I do is, Zoom workouts and Zoom bingo with my row team. But you guys keep me engaged and connected and smiling. So without them, we never could have done it. Everyone was so thrilled to be back on the water, and we had to take it a little bit slow. At first, we had to ensure that we were going to be able to socially distance and watch the capacity and how many women we were gathering even outdoors. We filled up that first water session, I think within an hour of me sending that registration out. And then when we were able to add capacity, it just was more smiles as more and more teammates came back. And so I person after so many months.
That's absolutely terrific. That's fantastic. Does the organization, or as the program manager, do you have any like favorite workouts that you like to have the team do?
Gosh, well, on the ergs, the dreaded 158.
Okay, all right. Tell us about that.
Oh God, it's just that one we do at or below benchmark.
Okay.
So it's a perfect workout right as we're leaving fall, and everybody's built their distance, their volume. We've been practicing longer and longer pieces heading into the head race season. We will be participating in a couple of head races in the next couple of weeks. Everyone has had to submit their benchmarks. We do a 20-minute benchmark in preparation for fall. And they know it will be bookended with one when racing is over, which is a little bit of a reward, right? Being asked to do a second benchmark, because then you can really see how
progress.
How you've progressed.
Awesome. What races?
Once they've got that number.
Absolutely. What races or regattas will you and the organization be competing in this fall?
Well, we're going to be headed out to Rockford, Illinois for Head of the Rock. That's a really, really exciting event. We really love that one. Hoping to send at least 2 Masters 8s and a Novice 8 as well. And
Fantastic.
then hold at the end of our season a team scrimmage. And the plan for this year is to combine Masters and Novices, but vote everybody by their row class of year. So we have longest members or veteran members. I'll have to sort of group them up a little bit, right? Like the 2009, the 2011, and the 2013, see if I can get an 8 together. And then they'll be going against 3 boats of our novices that have all joined in 2020, 2021.
That's cool. Yeah, I like it. A little bit of class racing from the kind of university, so to speak. That's good. I like it. So there's going to be a lot of pride and maybe a little bit of trash talking, I think, and very good, excellent. So what? Tell us about some more of the resources at Row, as well as sort of what's on the horizon. What does the organization have planned presently and for the future?
Well, our current programming for our team here in Chicago is robust, right? We came out of the pandemic really stronger than we went in, because now we have not only the water program, which is the core of what we do, but really strong year-round erg program. That's relatively new. So we've got erg workouts available all year round. And we've retained our virtual workouts because that's just a more convenient workout and people involved in those erg workouts having that virtual Zoom option. And then heading into summer next year, we will be hosting our Power 10 camp. That's something that we have done every year, not 2020, but we did manage it this year in a smaller format, where we invite our team members and other breast cancer survivors to spend 4 concentrated days in a beautiful location. It'll be back up in northern Michigan this next year in 2022, where they can really focus on rowing intensive and time spent building those team relationships in an intensive environment.
I think some of the other services we offer are kind of supplemental to our rowing programming. We have a psychiatrist we work with who does an actual support group in the more traditional sense with the row team members. We have yoga. We offer community classes. So anyone in kind of the Bridgeport community who wants to come learn to row in our space and have access to our equipment, that's something we think it's very important to connect to the broader community where we row. And yeah.
Wonderful. It sounds like we can find Row on land, on water, virtually. We've got also camps as well coming up. That's all wonderful options. You know, any of those I think can work for anyone out there. If anyone is looking for you, what are some of the ways to find you online and on social media?
Of course, yeah. So we're just www.recoveryonwater.org. You can follow us on Instagram at recoveryonwater, and then you can just search Recovery on Water on Facebook as well. I'm more than happy to receive emails. My email address is very easy, sheena@recoveryonwater.org, and Tara's is tara@recoveryonwater.org. We'd love to hear from you and get you started on this journey if you'd like to be a part of our team or to help support our team via a donation.
Fantastic. Tara, anything to add?
Really what brought me into my current role here at Row was knowing that there were so many women in the Chicagoland area that were eligible to receive our services, Row on our team, and would benefit from it. And I cannot wait to meet more of them.
That's absolutely wonderful. Ladies, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to both of you. I'm really excited about all the work that you have done well over the last decade plus, and the continued work that you're doing as we move forward. So really excited to share this interview with the greater rowing community.